In this video, we are going to discuss Chapter 5 on Cellular Respiration, Part A multiple choice questions. Okay, so for question number 1, which of the following metabolic stages synthesizes ATP molecule via oxidative phosphorylation? Okay, so as you know, oxidative phosphorylation is the fourth stage of cellular respiration, which will synthesize the most ATP molecule. So oxidative phosphorylation, it has two components, which is electron transport chain, which involve electron carriers that are embedded in the inner membrane of mitochondria. And also you can find ATP synthase, which is the enzyme that is required to synthesize ATP. Okay, and then it also involves chemiosmosis. So chemiosmosis is the process where the high concentration of hydrogen ions from the intermembrane space, intermembrane space that has a high hydrogen ion concentration will diffuse back, using ATP synthase, diffuse back into the matrix, where in the matrix it has a low concentration of hydrogen ion. So the process where hydrogen ion diffuse back from high concentration region to low concentration region using ATP synthase will synthesize ATP molecule, from ADP and also inorganic phosphate. So that is chemiosmosis. So the answer would be D. Right? So for glycolysis, it is the first stage of cellular respiration that occurs in the cytoplasm, which produces ATP molecule, a net of 2 ATP molecule and also 2 NADH molecule. And as for citric acid cycle, it is the third stage of cellular respiration that occurs in the matrix of mitochondria, and for one molecule of glucose being oxidized, the citric acid cycle has to occur twice. So therefore, for citric acid cycle, the number of ATP produced for one molecule of glucose will be 2 ATP. So this you have to take note, the citric acid cycle has to occur twice, for one molecule of glucose. And it produces for 2 cycle of citric acid cycle, it produces 6 NADH molecule and also 2 FADH2 molecule. So citric acid cycle, it occurs in the matrix of mitochondria. And you have to take note, the synthesis of ATP during citric acid cycle and also glycolysis, it occurs through a process, we call it as substrate level phosphorylation. And then as for pyruvate oxidation, it is the second stage of cellular respiration, where it occurs in the matrix of mitochondria that produces, for one molecule of glucose, it produces 2 NADH molecule. So pyruvate oxidation for one glucose molecule, it occurs twice. Because each time pyruvate oxidation will require one molecule of pyruvate to enter into the reaction, that produces 1 NADH. So for one molecule of glucose, it requires 2 pyruvate that will synthesize 2 NADH molecule, right? So these are the products, which is NADH, and also FADH are the products that will enter into the oxidative phosphorylation stage, that these two molecules function as electron carriers that carries which carries electron with high energy, that the energy will be used to synthesize ATP molecule, right? So number 2, NADH and FADH2 are both electron carriers that are synthesized via the process of reduction. Okay, reduction, because initially these two molecules which are found, okay, in the matrix or in the cytoplasm, if we are looking at glycolysis. So initially they for NADH, okay, to synthesize NADH, it is in the form of NAD plus. Okay, to synthesize NADH, so NAD plus will combine with hydrogen ions and also electrons. Okay, actually it requires two hydrogen ion, two electrons, okay, to form NADH plus H plus. Okay, so the hydrogen ion, the extra hydrogen ion will be released to the surrounding. Okay, so do not forget to write the plus sign for NAD plus. Okay, and then for FAD H2, okay, so initially it is in the form of FAD. It does not have any plus sign. Okay, so in order to form FADH2, so it requires two hydrogen ions and two electrons to produce FADH2. Okay, so 2 you have to write it as subscript. Okay, so number 3, figure 1 shows a step during glycolysis where ATP is produced in a cell. This reaction refers to, okay, so if you look at this diagram, actually you can see that the process synthesizes ATP. Okay, so the reactant involved here is 1,3-bis biphosphoglycerate. Okay, so it means that for this molecule it has two phosphate group attached to it, which is at carbon number 1 and also at carbon number 3. Okay, so this is actually the stage that occurs during it is the stage that occurs during glycolysis, where the glycolysis, it has 10 steps. Okay, 10 steps. So this one in this figure, it is step 7. Okay, it is step 7. So so back to the molecule. Okay, 1,3-biphosphoglycerate. So in order to synthesize ATP molecule, so the phosphate group at carbon number 1 will be released and will be accepted by ADP. Okay, and then ADP becomes ATP. So this process we call it as phosphorylation. Okay, ADP receives inorganic phosphate from this molecule. Okay, so to form ATP. So the process of synthesizing ATP in this way, we call it as substrate level phosphorylation. Okay, because the phosphate comes from a substrate. Okay, so because this molecule has released one of its phosphate, so so it is left with three phosphoglycerate. Okay, one phosphate that is attached to carbon number 3. All right. So so basically, step 7 is the step that occurs in the energy investment phase, okay, of glycolysis, where in the energy investment phase, it involves step 6 until step 10. Okay, so when you are entering into this step 6 until step 7, every product, okay, you have to times by 2. Okay, so it means that during this stage 2 ATP is synthesized during glycolysis. Okay, in the energy investment in energy payoff phase. So another step that also produces ATP through substrate level phosphorylation is step 10. Okay, so if you look at in your notes, step 10 also produces 2 molecule of ATP. So therefore, during energy payoff phase, okay, energy payoff phase, okay, it produces 4 ATP molecule. But you have to take note that previously, okay, during step 1 until 5, okay, which is energy energy and investment phase, okay, 2 ATP molecule was used. Okay, used. in the energy investment phase. So for glycolysis, you have to calculate the net production of ATP. So net production of ATP will be 4 ATP, okay, minus 2 ATP that was used. 2 ATP that was used. So therefore, the net production of ATP during glycolysis will be 2 ATP molecule. Okay, so the answer for question 3, okay, which is shows the production of ATP through the process of substrate level phosphorylation. Okay, so number 4, products of pyruvate oxidation that is used to produce ATP via oxidative phosphorylation would be NADH. Okay, pyruvate oxidation is the second stage of cellular respiration. It is also known as link reaction. Okay, link reaction that will synthesize an ADH molecule. Okay, that will be used later in the oxidative phosphorylation stage to produce ATP molecule. Okay. Apart from producing NADH during link reaction, it also produces carbon dioxide. So as you know, carbon dioxide is the byproduct of cellular respiration. Question number 5. Figure 2 shows step in the citric acid cycle. What does A, C and G represent? Okay, so citric acid cycle which occurs in the matrix of mitochondria. Okay, so the initial reactant for citric acid cycle is A, which is acetyl-CoA, which is this molecule was synthesized, okay, during link reaction. Okay, during link reaction, which is the second stage of cellular respiration. Okay, so so A is acetyl-CoA. So C and D will be incorrect, right? So that's leave you with A and B. So C, okay, where isocitrate, okay, isocitrate will release carbon dioxide and produces NADH. Isocitrate is a 6 carbon compound. Okay, so when carbon dioxide is released, it becomes a 5 carbon compound. Okay, so 5 carbon compound is actually alpha ketoglutarate. Okay, 5 carbon compound, which is alpha ketoglutarate. Okay, so if you refer to your notes, succinate is actually a 4 carbon compound. Malate is a 4 carbon compound. Okay, so therefore for your answer would be A lah. Okay, so which is C would be alpha ketoglutarate. So if you look at the reaction, alpha ketoglutarate, which is a 5 carbon compound, will release carbon dioxide that will produce intermediate D. So intermediate D would be a 4 carbon compound. So the 4 carbon compound produced here is actually we call it as succinyl-CoA. Okay, succinyl-CoA. So please refer to your notes. And then from succinyl-CoA, intermediate D, it produces intermediate E, which is succinate. Okay, succinate, which is also a 4 carbon compound. 4 carbon compound. Okay, so the answer will be A. Okay, so starting from molecule D until up to it produces oxaloacetate, all these intermediate are 4 carbon compound. Okay, so 4 carbon compound combined with a 2 carbon compound, which is acetyl-CoA, produces intermediate B, which is actually citrate, converted into its isomer, isocitrate, 6 carbon compound, carbon dioxide is released, produces a 5 carbon compound, which is alpha ketoglutarate, and then another carbon dioxide released and produces succinyl-CoA, okay, which is a 4 carbon compound. Okay, so number 6, which of these statements are correct regarding chemiosmosis? So let's look at each statement. Involved in oxidative phosphorylation. So correct. Okay, so oxidative phosphorylation involves chemiosmosis. So known as energy coupling mechanism. So this one is correct. Okay. And then occurs only in the inner membrane of mitochondria. This one is incorrect because chemiosmosis, as I said before, it involves the movement or the diffusion of hydrogen ion from intermembrane space to matrix, okay, using ATP synthase, okay, through ATP synthase. So this one is incorrect. Occurs only in the inner membrane of mitochondria is incorrect. And then number 4, energy is stored as hydrogen ion gradient across a membrane. So this one is correct. So the answer will be 1, 2, and 4. Okay, so for chemiosmosis, what you have to understand is that, okay, so here, for example, you have the inner membrane of mitochondria. Okay, so here is the outer membrane of mitochondria. In between, you have the intermembrane space where the concentration of hydrogen ion is high. Okay, so here in this region is the matrix. Concentration of hydrogen ion will be low. Okay, so during chemiosmosis, due to the high concentration of hydrogen ion, the hydrogen ion will use a protein that is embedded in the inner membrane of mitochondria. We call it as ATP synthase. Okay, due to the high concentration of hydrogen ion, okay, hydrogen ion will create proton motive force, okay, which is a form of energy used by ATP synthase, okay, when the hydrogen ion diffuses back, okay, from the intermembrane space into the matrix. Okay, so this proton motive force is used by ATP synthase to synthesize, okay, ATP from ADP and also inorganic phosphate. That is chemiosmosis. Okay. So which compound directly provides energy for cellular work? So the answer obviously will be ATP. Okay, so ATP, as you know, is the molecule. We call it as energy currency for cell. Okay, that is produced during cellular respiration. So example of cellular work are active transport, for example. Okay, and then number 8. What are the end products of glycolysis other than ATP? Okay, so glycolysis, as you know, it produces a net of 2 ATP. It does not produce any carbon dioxide. Okay, so carbon dioxide are only synthesized or produced during Krebs cycle and also link reaction. So therefore, the answer will be D. Okay, so where glycolysis produces also NADH and also pyruvate. Okay, so for one molecule of glucose, it produces 2 NADH and 2 pyruvate. Okay, so number 9, pyruvic acid must be converted to, okay, the answer would be acetyl-CoA before it can enter into the citric acid cycle. So pyruvic acid, also known as pyruvate, which is the end product of glycolysis, okay, it then enters into the link reaction that will convert the pyruvate or the pyruvic acid into acetyl-CoA. Okay, so then only the acetyl-CoA can enter into the matrix and enter into the citric acid cycle. Okay, so number 10, number 10, the oxygen consumed during cellular respiration is involved directly in which process? Okay, so the answer would be electron transport chain. Okay, so because oxygen will function as the last electron receptor. Okay, the last electron acceptor. Okay, so as you have learned, okay, electron from NADH will be released from the NADH molecule. It will travel along the electron carrier, and then lastly will be accepted by oxygen. This is because oxygen is more electronegative. Okay, compared to the electron carriers. Okay, so it can pull the electron toward itself, and then the oxygen molecule can combine with hydrogen ions and also hydrogen ions and produces water molecule basically. Okay, so basically as for one molecule of oxygen, okay, you have to half the oxygen molecule combine with 2 hydrogen ion to produce one molecule of water. Okay, so water is produced during this stage, the electron transport chain stage, and as you know, water is the is also the byproduct of cellular respiration. Okay, so oxygen basically will be used during this stage as the last electron acceptor. Number 11, okay, so which stage of cellular respiration releases carbon dioxide? So glycolysis does not release any carbon dioxide. Oxidation of pyruvate and citric acid cycle is the stage that releases carbon dioxide. Oxidation of pyruvate is actually referring to pyruvate oxidation or link reaction. Okay, the second stage of cellular respiration. Oxidative phosphorylation, glycolysis. Okay, this one does not involve the production of carbon dioxide. Okay, so number 12, how many oxygen molecules are needed each time one molecule of glucose is completely oxidized, okay, to carbon dioxide and water? Okay, so for this one, in order for you to determine how many oxygen molecule are required to oxidize, okay, one molecule of glucose, you have to refer back to the overall equation of cellular respiration, okay, that you have already learned, okay, during your form 5 for example. Okay, so this equation you are really familiar, I'm sure, okay, which is one molecule of glucose, okay, 6 molecule of oxygen are required, okay, during cellular respiration to produce 6 molecule of carbon dioxide, 6 molecule of water, and also energy in the form of ATP. Okay, so the answer will be C. Okay, C. See, this is the balance equation for cellular respiration, but obviously cellular respiration does not occur as simple as this equation. Okay, because it involves the 4 stages of cellular respiration that are quite complex. Okay, glycolysis, link reaction, Krebs cycle or citric acid cycle, and also oxidative phosphorylation. This is the equation just to give you an understanding on how cellular respiration takes place. Okay, number 13, in cellular respiration, carbon dioxide is first released during this stage. So glycolysis does not produce any carbon dioxide. Krebs cycle is the third stage. Chemiosmosis does not involve in producing carbon dioxide. So pyruvate, which is the second stage, which involve the production of carbon dioxide. So which one? So the question asks you first. Okay, the first that release carbon dioxide, so the answer will be pyruvate. So, okay, because Krebs cycle is the stage after pyruvate oxidation, so the answer would be pyruvate oxidation, which is D. It releases first the carbon dioxide, okay, for cellular respiration. Number 14, what is the net number of ATP produced, okay, net number of ATP produced per glucose molecule during glycolysis? The answer would be 2. Okay, so I've shown you the calculation earlier, so please make sure you understand how we get the 2 as the answer. Number 15, the inner membrane of mitochondrion is highly folded, okay, to increase the surface area for the attachment of protein complex and also enzyme. Okay, so that's why as you have learned, okay, so the structure of mitochondria, it is rod shape, it has the outer membrane and the folded inner membrane, we call it as the cristae. Okay, so why is it folded? Because this is to increase surface area to allow more electron carrier, okay, of electron transport chain and also ATP synthase to be embedded, okay, in this inner membrane, so that when you have more electron carriers, more ATP synthase, so therefore more ATP will be synthesized. Question 16. Which of the following statements about oxidative phosphorylation is not correct? Okay, so let's look at the choices of answer one by one. ATP is synthesized by chemiosmosis, so this one is correct. Okay, so chemiosmosis involves ATP synthase that will synthesize ATP molecule. Okay, second statement, FADH2 transfers electrons to the electron transport chain. Okay, so as you know, FADH2, which was produced during citric acid cycle, will carry electron with high energy, and this electron will be transferred to electron transport chain. Okay, so that the electron from the FADH2 molecule will release energy, will release the energy to pump hydrogen ion from the matrix into the intermembrane space. Okay, so basically, for example, here you have the inner membrane of mitochondria. This region you have the matrix. This region is the intermembrane space. Okay, you have the outer membrane of mitochondria, and then this one you really have to make sure you understand, okay, where in the matrix it has a low concentration of hydrogen ion. In the intermembrane space it has a high concentration of hydrogen ion. Okay, so in the inner membrane of mitochondria or cristae, it has, okay, electron carrier, okay, electron carrier of electron transport chain. So first we have the complex 1, okay, and then you have complex 2, and then you have complex 3, and then in between here you have another carrier, we call it as the ubiquinone, okay, and then you have 3 and then 4, okay, and then in between 3 and 4 you have the cytochrome C complex, okay, and then here you have the ATP synthase, okay, ATP synthase. So the function of either FADH or NADH is that it carries electron, and this electron will be released from these two molecules and transfer. They pass from one electron carrier to another electron carrier to another electron carrier, and then lastly will be received by oxygen, okay, and combines with hydrogen ion to produce water molecule. Okay, so the purpose of transferring this electron, so that the electron releases energy, and this energy will be used, okay, by the protein complex, okay, protein complex 1, 3 and 4 to pump hydrogen ion from the matrix into the intermembrane space, so that the hydrogen ion can be concentrated in the intermembrane space. So basically the complex also function as proton pump, okay, because it involves active transport. basically active transport that uses energy from the electron to move hydrogen ion, okay, from the low concentration region to high concentration region, a form of active transport. Okay, so so that is basically it explains to you on electron transport chain, and the function of FADH and also NADH molecule. Okay, so statement B is correct. Okay, FADH2 transfers electron to the electron transport chain to release energy so that this complex can pump hydrogen ion, okay, from matrix into intermembrane space. Statement C, hydrogen ions diffuse through ATP synthase from mitochondrial matrix to the intermembrane space. So this one is incorrect because the diffusion of hydrogen ion is from intermembrane space back into the matrix. Okay, from supposed to be the other way around, from the intermembrane space into the mitochondrial matrix, because the process is diffusion from high concentration region, okay, to low concentration region. Okay, so so the answer will be C. It is the incorrect statement. As for the energy released from the electron transport chain result in proton motive force. Okay, so the energy from the transport of electron releases energy to pump hydrogen ion to interstitial to the intermembrane space to concentrate hydrogen ion and to produce proton motive force, okay, which is a form of energy that allows ATP synthase to synthesize ATP from ADP and also inorganic phosphate. Okay, so number 17, which of the following statement is not correct about glycolysis? So ATP is used, yes, okay, because 2-ATP was used during the energy investment phase. ATP form, yes, okay, 4 are formed during energy payoff phase. Okay, so therefore net production is 2. Substrate level phosphorylation takes place, yes, because the production of ATP during glycolysis is through substrate level phosphorylation. The end products are carbon dioxide and water, obviously not. Okay, glycolysis does not produce any carbon dioxide. Okay, and then number 18, what happens, okay, to pyruvic acid during its conversion to acetyl coenzyme A? Okay, so pyruvic acid or pyruvate, which is a 3-carbon compound, will release, okay, its carboxyl group COO negative as carbon dioxide. Okay, so in the process of releasing carbon dioxide, it also releases electron. Okay, it also releases electrons. So the process of releasing electron, losing electron, okay, we call it as oxidized. Okay, so that's the end of for part A. Okay, so I hope you understand what we have discussed.